Welcome everybody. Sarah, Joe, how you guys doing?
Good to be back.
Yes, it's been a long time since you've been on, Joe, and
Really have too
even
long.
Sarah. Yeah, it's been a long time since it seems like we had like a summer lull for putting these things out.
Right, it's
Yeah.
so good to have everyone back.
Joe, we wanted to have a big a topic on like you've been building allUP.
Yep.
You talked about this before, and I'm sure people listening now don't remember you kind of explained it. I don't know what once you give like kind of a background. How long has it been since you started it? Like
Mhm.
how is the team, how the grown, like the product iterations, where are you guys now? And like kinda, like, doing this for the second time after Klout and all the learnings are you have had and all the amazing traction you're having or just kinda
Trying
anything.
to have, yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's definitely been a good journey so far, a long journey so far. We started this in kind of late 21, and the overall idea is actually, I think what had happened in 2020, I was building a previous company called Joymode. We'd kinda hit a plateau where it made it was clear this wasn't gonna be a breakout success, and we decided to sell the company. We sold it to a private equity firm who wanted the software, but not the people, and we had about 100. We were a logistics operations heavy company. We had, like, 100 people, and we had to let all those people go, and yeah, thankfully, this was 2020, so better job market. It wasn't like we were throwing people out into the desert, but it was like still had these amazing people that I knew how great they were. I worked
Yeah.
side by side with them and I was seeing them struggle to get their next role. And I really wanted to make sure that their next role was a step up, that they were uh that they were kind of moving forward in their career, not regressing. Cause as CEO, you're ultimately your people are like the most important thing, taking care of them. So I was like sitting with each person, looking at their LinkedIn, looking at their resume, trying to make introductions. And it was just clear to me that there was this giant gap between what you could see they were capable of or what they had done or whatever on LinkedIn or the resume in general and what I knew they were capable of having worked. So for every person, I wrote like a couple paragraphs of like, here's what you can't see. I sent this out to every VC, every recruiter, every hiring manager, every CEO, like everyone I knew. And it had this major impact on getting people jobs. And that was really the foundation for the idea of allUP, which is a new way, a new professional network, a new way to express professional identity and what you're capable of, and ideally open doors to new opportunities. So we've effectively been trying to build like a new version of LinkedIn,
Right.
and LinkedIn's not going anywhere. Like there's no, we will be getting email spam for the rest of our life, but I believe there's like new surface area that can be created to express what we're capable of and to again, get access to more opportunities. But it has been really challenging. Like we've been at it for 2.5 years. Uh, a lot of, I think like maybe I'll start with something I just totally underestimated, which was what like table stakes were for this product.
Right.
And, the cloud experience and even the joy mode experience, those being more pure consumer and just being earlier in kind of the app era, people were like more willing, more excited to try new stuff. I think right
Right.
now it's
Right.
incredibly hard to get people to try anything new. And add on top of that something related to professional identity where like, this is you trying to get a job. This is how you present yourself. Your people, I underestimated how how much polish you needed on a product in this space to get somebody to try it. So
Right.
it took a really long time to build out the foundation, to get the quality level to that bar, so that we could start growing. But we are in that phase and we are growing and we're seeing a lot of like interesting pieces.
How is like, just the at a macro level, like the job market right now? It seems like as a employer, I guess, that like the market is sort of in the favor of employers and that there's lots
Yeah.
of really talented people applying for jobs and it's not that competitive as opposed to like a few years ago when it was, really hard to hire someone and you were competing with all the top tech companies and, it'd be like 10 offers for every candidate. Is that just my perception or is that shift
So
happened or how is that also impacting your business?
yeah, it's happened in a major way. And that 2021 era where it was like you have one bad day at work and you can open your email and have 10 offers is
Right.
like feels like gone and maybe gone for good or uh it is crazy the level of talent that applies for every role right now. We so to explain why I have this insight, like we are now working really closely with companies to help fill roles. So we see the whole pipeline.
Right.
We are in a lot of ways acting as a recruiter, but using all
Mhm.
of our digital products. And literally thousands of people apply for roles. And if it's a remote role, it's like one of a CEO we were helping described it the inbound application as a denial of service attack on the ATS.
Holy
Like you just get so
wow.
many applications, and it's like, how do you make sense of 1,000? Let's just say it's 1,000, which is actually not. We have roles right now that have like 5,000 applications.
Wow.
But let's say
Wow.
you have 1,000. How do you make sense of that as a hiring manager? Like just the amount of time it would take to go through it. Like you can't. It's almost impossible. And then to make matters worse, there was a stat, I don't know, it was like Fortune or Forbes, like one of the magazines had an article where 90% of resumes right now are ChatGPT like
Wow.
generated.
Wow.
So it's basically trivial to match a resume to a job description and have ChatGPT or some AI product
Right.
make you look like the perfect candidate. So you're not only getting a ton of applications,
Right.
but they all look good and you can't tell anything about like who you're hiring and who. So how do you filter that down to like 5 or 8 people or 10 people even that you're going to screen? It's basically lottery. And there's other programs candidates are using to apply to every job, which I get from their standpoint. Like you have to just kind of carpet bomb everything. But I think the like whole system is basically collapsing. There's too many applications, too easy to apply to jobs and too hard to find people. Uh, and too much noise kind of flooding the zone of like what anyone has done or what they're actually capable of. So for candidates, finding a way to stand out is critical. And for
Right.
companies, then the other side of companies is the HR talent teams have often been the part of the like everyone's gone through reductions over the last couple years. HR talent teams were hit very hard during that.
Right.
So they are gone or not as rebuilt as they were. And you're getting all these applications, but fewer people internally in companies to help process them. And so that's why processes are taking a really long time. Interview processes are a mess. Like the whole system is very clogged up.
Did this change um kind of the direction that you were taking all up?
Totally. It really did. We did not know the world really changed as we were building. And when we first started the product, the company, we really just wanted this like way for people to show like the full version of themselves. Uh, w- you know, ChatGPT wasn't even out yet. Like
Right.
there, you could play with the OpenAI AI like APIs. Um, so the world changed as we were building, and it's been really cool for us because also we've been able to build our product as all these AI tools came out. So like they are infused in like everywhere in what we built, but it has created, uh, I think it has created an environment where a product like ours is needed. I think there's a bunch of people using AI to try to solve hiring. And I feel like they are all fundamentally flawed because they're all based on the resume. And the resume is a like flawed piece of data that is even worse in an AI world where it's so easily current
Right.
game.
Yeah, that's kinda crazy, and it sounds like it kind of this what you're building kinda landed in your favor, right? Like, you could because you're able to help these candidates stand out amongst the crowd of these 10,000 applicants.
And it's been awesome. I mean, we had 50 people get hired to allUP in August, uh, which was like, felt really great. And the thing we hear again and again from hiring managers is
Yeah.
when we ask them about the person they hire, they say like, wow, we would have filtered that person out previously. Like
Wow.
they didn't have Stanford or they didn't have Harvard or they didn't have Google on their resume, they would have got filtered out. But all up is, for more information, it's video. It's, there's like an asynchronous interview part to it. And being able to hear those stories of what people have accomplished, how they solve problems, how they communicate, how they collaborate,
Right.
uh, especially in an AI world where like the resume is really a skill based document. It's like titles that imply skills. And I think we are moving to a world where like there's no skill us as people will be better at than AI. So all the soft parts of like
Right.
how you work, how you collaborate, how you problem solve are more important, and being able to express that is critical.
Right. And walk us through. So how have you still kept the team really small as you're iterating through all this stuff?
We've basically had the exact same team from day one. We were kind of so I think we were like a big team in the beginning, and now we're a small team for like
Yeah.
because we had like a crew of people that either I had worked with or my co-founder had worked with
Right.
that we knew was like, this is we have a stack. We have like a designer, a front end person, a back end person, like AI person. And like, with this team, we can experiment a bunch of stuff. And that has worked really well in our favor. And now there's challenges in the sense that, um, it's only 6 people. So our burn has been basically flat for the
Yeah.
whole time. Uh, but because it has taken a long time, we are in a like zone where we're growing crazy fast, where we
Right.
actually can't invest to hire more people. So everyone has to do more. And we're in like a kind of painful crunch heading into a fundraise. It's kind of that like
Yeah.
drive towards the cliff as you're stepping on the gas.
In there.
Yeah. So, uh, I think our burn has been flat, could have been considered high in the beginning, is now considered low in comparison to what we're accomplishing, but we're feeling it.
What are you so you mentioned you're heading into a fundraise, like, what are you doing differently or the same this time around after having a couple successes under your belt? Like, sounds like you're still interested in the VC path and raising money. Uh, is there any, sounds like maybe you structured things a little differently and that you're pretty low burn going into this, but
Yeah. Well, we did raise a seed, and so, like, we've been venture backed through this process,
yeah.
but, um and it's a really weird fundraise. I feel partially because 'cause we've just been so heads down and, frankly, a year ago or even, like, end of last year, it was not clear that we were gonna make it. Like, we were kinda just
Right.
wandering through the desert trying to find we'd built this really cool product. I talked about like how the feature level and the polish level had to be really high. We built it's almost like you have this amazing house. Now you're throwing a party and you have to get people to come.
Yeah.
So we had this like really hard cold start and we were trying all these different things and like, a little bit worked here, a little bit worked there, but nothing sustainable. And it was like very questionable of like, would we make it? And so I hadn't been out having conversations. It's been like heads down trying to get out of that funk. We really did this year. Like we're on a crazy growth rate. But now I'm out
That's awesome.
starting to raise and I feel really disconnected from the market. So I'm kind of like having conversations, getting that reality check and trying to learn. The market will tell you kind of what the deal is. Like, are we an up round? Are we flat round? Are we a down round? Like, I don't, I know what I want, obviously, but like, you deal with the game that's on the field.
So what was like the big unlock? Was it just enterprise sales that
It
drove
was,
the growth?
it was really just, getting companies to like post jobs through us to fill the network. Cause,
The cold start problem for a marketplace.
yeah.
Yeah.
And, it was interesting. I would like, everyone would be posting on LinkedIn, like the sad post of like, I just got laid off,
Right.
I'm, if you know anyone, introduce me, blah, blah, blah. And I would respond to all those and I'd be like, hey, we're building this thing. We can really help you. I'd love to help you get your profile set up and we'll share it out for you. And we'll like, very few people ever took that offer. But the second you post like a job, we would get like literally thousands of people join allUP, create their
Right.
profile. And
Right.
then we have a whole team that then helps those people, 999 people apply to a job, one person, or 1,000 people apply, 999 don't get it. We have a team that helps all those people that didn't get the role use their profile and connect them to other opportunities.
Right.
Uh, and then we have the network. There's like a bunch of things people can do to connect with each other and things like that. Uh, and everyone thanks you. Like they're like, well, because there was a thing that like got them to do it. Now they're really happy to be in it. But it was having that very tangible reason to start.
Mm.
And it seems so obvious now, but I like in the beginning weren't finding it. Pardon me. It's interesting if you talk to anyone. I've had a lot of conversations with early LinkedIn people,
Yeah.
and this isn't like really the public story, but what they'll say is like 80 or 90% of people who created their LinkedIn profile did it while they were on a job search.
Right.
Like no
Right.
one was like, "Oh, cool, there's a network I can go flex about
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
awesome
Yeah.
I am at my job." They were like, but when they were like, "Oh, I might want to look for something later this year," or "Crap, I need to look for something today," they go and create their profile, and like that really is the trigger point. And then there's a journey to, you know, getting those people to be engaged in the network long term. But that's the start.
It sounds like right now is like a perfect time to kind of take advantage of kind of the existing way that you apply and on these tens of thousands of people applying to a single role and how you can kind of change that because who knows if the market is going to stay like that. I mean, it may go back to I hope it doesn't go back to like 2021 where it was just it was so easy to get jobs. People had multiple jobs. Um, I hope it doesn't go back to
Well, you
that, but it sounds
mentioned,
like
like, you think it won't. Like, I'm curious why, like, because I would think the job market is kinda cyclical, like, sometimes it's harder to get a job, other times it's really easy, and
I
there's
mean, I the reason I don't think it will go back anytime soon is I look at what our team is accomplishing right now,
yeah.
and I compare that to my last two companies and what our team size would have needed to be to
Oh,
hold an
totally.
equivalent. And it's like we would literally be 3 or 4 times the size
Yeah. Yeah.
to do what we are doing now. And it's hard for me not to imagine that every company is not realizing that. And like, so
because
for
of
the people that
AI or just because you realize you don't need all the people to get stuff done?
more AI, but then also I think a lot of companies realized like more people was more noise.
Right.
But I think just pure AI that like, and just there's so many different tools and different, like components you can plug together, uh, that doing more with less, I think is like a mega trend that is, broadly not going to go away and will take a long time to kind of adjust. And, it was interesting though, when we did start and the market was very uh, like candidates were more in power.
Mhm.
Right.
We were seeing companies adopt allUP because they would create profiles for their hiring managers so that candidates can see like, oh, that's a really great person to go work for. So if it
Oh,
does,
interesting.
when it
Yeah.
does tilt back, and I feel like, we will still be in a good position, but I personally, and this is like, again, just like from just the experience of like how much we are doing with how many few people, like, I feel like there's just fewer jobs or like more talented people available for every job.
I tended to agree with you, Sarah. I do think that it is going to be cyclical, but also I agree with you too, Joe. So, I'm not ready to talk about what I'm doing right now, but doing something new and like the just on the engineering side, the technology that you have available today, like even versus like 2 or 3 years ago, like is just remarkable. Like you literally are able to get 10x like output by using a lot of these tools. A lot of them are based in AI just on the engineering side. And I think that a lot of other functions can have that too. But I think that we will go back to an era as interest rates go down lower. There's more capital for startups and other companies. Like everybody's going to get drunk on just like if interest rates go down and capital is more free, and to compete more, you need to hire people. And even if you look at like the Uber and Lyft days, like there's no reason they needed to raise that much money, but like they were trying to compete and be the number one
Yeah.
ride sharing platform. So I think that it definitely will get more to that eventually. It just happens in
Yeah.
every single market. It always
I
happens.
think it's more correlated to interest rates, like you said, because in the childcare industry, so Winnie has a product that helps childcare centers hire staff. And this was like the hottest thing a couple years ago. Like we literally had to build it because all of our customers were begging for help hiring staff. So we
Right.
built this feature for them. And it's not a burning need anymore. Like we still have customers using it, but it's not our biggest seller by any stretch. And we just typically it's like an add-on. It's not like the reason people come to us anymore. So like childcare centers are not using AI in any
Right.
real like way to help their business scale. And it is a human driven business. And so you wonder like why is it so much easier for these centers to now hire? Um and yeah, like I think because there's just not that many other jobs out there. It's not that
There isn't.
people
No.
are willing to do work in childcare now versus if there are other better jobs, they're going to take those. So maybe in that way it could be AI based because these other companies that would have hired them aren't. But I also think there's like an interest rate. It seems to be correlated with the interest rate environment.
Yeah, well, what you're going to happen, even with the larger companies, which definitely draw more of the talent, obviously, you'll have a Facebook or whatever public company, and they'll like they did massive layoffs, laid off tens of thousands of people, and that in comparison to the startup ecosystem is completely different. And so what happens even with those companies is that they were rewarded when interest rates were raising
Right.
to actually focus more on their bottom line. So having cuts, getting more free cash flow, all those things actually increase the price of their stock, which was good for them. And as soon as interest rates go lower, that means that there's going to be more capital that's going to be put into equities, and growth is going to be rewarded more. And so they're going to have more money and they're going to be rewarded
Right.
by growing faster. So how do you grow faster? You hire more people, even if you have more leverage with all of these other AI tools. So I definitely think it is completely cyclical. But I do, and I think that it is today, like we still are kind of in like a startup recession right now. I think today is the best time to be starting a company because you're able to use the tools and get massive leverage and just like I would say go and I think that the people that that are senior that have done this before, use the tools correctly, are open to using new tools. A lot of senior people are not. They're able to just build a lot faster and a lot more with a lot fewer resources. So you'll be able to get and kind of find that product market fit that, but also just takes time too, Joe. I'm sure that like it was just like you have to try. You guys were doing this 2.5 years. It's like even if you had more engineering resources, it's just sometimes these things just take time to find out what people actually really like and how to maybe for you guys how to solve that cold start problem.
Yeah, it'll be I am very interested. I think we are at the extreme end of like it is the most pressure, like hardest job market now. I don't think it stays like this. And I don't think it goes all the way back to what it was. It'll land, it'll bounce around somewhere more in the middle. Um, But I do think the overall problem of finding talent based on like signals that are easily manipulated by AI. We're in this
Yeah,
like
that's going to be a big problem.
bot by bot versus bot challenge where it's like candidate bots generating resumes and like bombarding every job and like ATS, recruiting bots uh trying to like fight that. It's just like
Right.
something will have to like unclog that either way.
Yeah, and it's the job market's been kind of crazy because LinkedIn made it so easy to apply for these jobs, right? You have and you could apply to multiple jobs at the same time. There's lots of like Tinder for jobs now. I see there's so many different ways and to apply, and it just like you're there's no I think that also if you're trying to get a job, you should do whatever you can to stand out. If that's going and creating an all out profile, if that's going and sending a cold email to the recruiting person, whoever that is, anything to send out, you definitely need to do that. But it's
Yeah.
crazy how easy it got to apply to these jobs, and that's another reason why you get tens of thousands of applicants for a single job
Well,
for these,
yeah.
especially remote postings.
I'm curious what you're seeing as far as like remote work. Like, are more people
Yeah,
wanting to work remotely? Are more employers hiring remotely? How does that, like, international? Is that becoming a thing at all? Are you
Yeah.
working with international candidates?
We are not really doing much international, um, mainly for kind of a dumb reason, because our login is through phone number and we just haven't got into dealing with phone numbers in all the different countries. So it will be coming, but we've kind of not been in that world as much. The remote versus on-site has been interesting. I feel like we have seen a surge in companies requiring on-site, and those roles definitely do get fewer applicants, like kind of order of magnitude.
right.
Still a lot, but fewer for sure. And uh, the remote stuff is really where it goes crazy. Because like you have a remote job, like you're you're willing to hire remote. The like access to talent you get is pretty breathtaking. Like every day I look at these people, I'm like, oh my gosh, like this
Right,
person is so legit, so good.
right.
Um, so yeah, that is uh and then but if you're an applicant in that and you think you're just gonna easy apply and throw your resume in the black hole and get a shot, you're probably not. You really
No, wait, you have a
yeah.
1 in 10,000 shot.
Yeah, you might as well go to like to the corner store and buy a lottery ticket. So it and I think a lot of people it's just really hard. Like, most of us founders have struggled with this where we've been in a zero interest rate forever and like we haven't had to deal with reality of like high interest rates and what that means to funding it as like a reality check.
Yeah,
Candidates are going through a similar thing where they're like, I've always been recruited. Everyone's always
right,
wanted me.
Right.
Everyone's always
right.
kicked out my door. And it takes a while for people to realize like, oh no, this is gonna be challenging. And I need to like be willing to put myself out there in ways I wasn't previously. And that's challenging. And it's interesting seeing because I talk to so many candidates every day. Like there's these kind of these stages I see people go through where it's like, oh, I'm gonna be fine. Everyone's
Yeah,
gonna want to talk to me.
yeah.
And then like, some people it's like how quickly can you get out of that before you get to like, I'm taking a break because I've just been it's so brutal out there and people
Right.
get so down. Like being able to stay in that middle ground where you can be positive and be productive is really challenging, I think. And rightfully so.
Have you seen people breaking down and, that wanted remote work and maybe move to a remote location that are actually willing to move to the city that for these premise, jobs are yet?
Not not any tangible what I could think of. But I do know people are really stressed. Like people who move to, whether for family or for just lifestyle or whatever, move to interesting places are feeling the heat and like having to consider it. I don't know of a specific anecdote of somebody who has, but I do know, even just from the emails and support and chat, like in our app, people get chat messages from me, so I get just tons of conversations with
Yeah.
candidates and, and we really do. We have a whole member placement team I mentioned. Like we really do try to get to know our users and help them and stuff. So we do hear these stories, and people are stressed for sure. And it's like there's a lot of life factors that come into that.
That's gotta be the last shoe to drop as well, because also, like, remember, I don't know, like 15 years ago or something, it was not, like, unusual for you and your family to go pack up and move to another city because you got a job, like, that was a thing, and that was the norm. It's gotta come back to that.
I mean,
I think.
I went to three middle schools, so no, three elementary schools, three middle schools, two high schools because we just
Exactly,
couldn't.
yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. It seems like that is not as common anymore. Um, so
I do have one anecdote. So something that I'm working on now. We hired somebody that is moving their entire family to the Bay, and because we're very focused on just hiring people in person, and that's a non-negotiable 5 days a week. and moving full family, schools, everything. So and this is a very senior person. So I don't know. I could definitely see that happening. And also, if you are a very ambitious person, I don't know. I personally, and I've been very public about this, but definitely value in-person work more than remote. So, like, I personally would want to be around other people that want to also be in person to make the company more successful, and then also you hopefully are going to be more successful from it. So, I think it makes a lot of sense. Sarah,
I
have you
mean,
changed
just
your
to
opinion on in person versus remote yet?
I could see this going like with products like allUP. I could imagine it becomes easier to hire if you are a remote company, like hire really talented people who can work remotely. One of the challenges with remote is just like you have to, to really take advantage of it, you have to go beyond generally your network and people you know and trust. And to really take advantage of it, you would hire internationally because that's where you can get some real talent that
Real
is,
leverage. Yep.
a tenth of the price. And the challenge with hiring internationally is that you have no idea if these are going to be good candidates. But if all up, other platforms can crack that and really find me talented folks. We have some really talented members of our team that are not based in the US. And like, it
Right.
is really hard to find those people. But when you do, I mean, that's a massive unlock. We hired a salesperson that is in Latin America, and he started talking to some of our prospects in Spanish. Just we didn't hire him to speak Spanish. In fact, like my big requirement was you were absolutely fluent in English. But it turns out we, in fact, have a lot of daycare providers that speak Spanish as their primary language and are more comfortable speaking to him in Spanish. They see his name and they
Right.
starts talking Spanish, and uh, that was like something we kind of stumbled upon. So anyway, I'm a big proponent of remote work when you can find the right people. Not everyone is a fit for remote work and not every position is a fit for remote work. You can't necessarily have all of your executives spread out unless your company is built that way. But I'm excited for all up to expand internationally because I think that could be a big
Yeah,
unlock.
I do too. It's been interesting. So one of the things we do at All Up is when we work with a company, we look at the job description, we sit with the team, and we translate that job description into specific question. Like, if this is the role, what do we need to learn about the person who's interviewing to see if they make sense for the role and want to move forward? And a question that we have asked candidates based on remote work is like, talk about your remote work routine. How do you stay like
That's cool.
invested in the culture? It's really interesting to hear those answers. Like, what do people do? How proactive are they? All those things, which is like a little but big thing in your hiring that like being able to hear that from people. And the even more compelling thing is you can have coworkers, your boss, whatever, record for you and get these kind of proactive testimonials and hearing stories of like, oh, Lisa, I never even met Lisa in person, but I feel like we're so close because we work so tightly together. And, uh, getting a sense of somebody's capabilities in a remote world when they are out of your network, you don't have any overlap with them, when there's no one you can talk to be like, is this person good? To hear those stories before you hire that person and find out 6 months later is, as a CEO, I'm always looking for what can de-risk a decision, and that's
Right.
like one of those things.
Whatever happened to, because LinkedIn kinda tried to do this with the recommendations, right? This is kind of a version of that. Did that not take off on LinkedIn?
It's
Or
I
peop
think my view on
videos
LinkedIn,
better?
I think, well, there's kind of LinkedIn has a lot of features
Yeah.
and a lot of stuff that gets launched and then kind of never touched. And I always felt like recommendations is one of those things where
Right. Right.
probably 15 years ago they've launched it and I've never seen a change to it. And when you read recommendations on people's profile, they're so generic, especially, and then you can kind of tell they happen in these moments of like, oh, our team had a layoff.
They're
Let's
always
go write,
solicited.
yeah, let's go write
They
the
are, yeah.
recommendation when to help the people who got laid off. And it's like, Sarah was such a pleasure to work with. excited, like the whole video, there's a ton of friction. Like to get somebody to record video for you
Right.
is like a big ask. And that's a bug and a feature. Like,
Right.
when
Yeah,
somebody
that's true.
records video about you and you see their face, you like their body language, you hear, like you really, really feel like this person means this thing they are saying. Like they are putting their face on video to
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
how much they like respect this person. Uh, like it's just so much more powerful.
Yeah, because the friction there, it is really a feature. Because I also, when I'm doing references, so I'll either like email people or whatever, and even the time that it takes them, and usually it'll be like a manager or something like that, to get back to you to be like, yeah, I can hop on, just call me anytime or something like that. Even just that alone shows you how important that actual person
Totally.
was to them. And so yeah,
I
the
totally
friction
agree. Like,
actually,
I will
yeah,
get reference checks for folks like I laid off, and I'll just be like, not available. Just try to
Yeah.
pass on responding because I don't wanna say anything bad versus, like, people that I really like, I
right,
had a guy
right,
that
yeah,
asked for a reference, and then they called me up, and I had, like, 100 something degree fever the other week, and I was so sick, and I was like, I wrote this whole thing from, like, lying down on my bed, like, I don't even have a voice to get on a call, but this is truly one of the best people I've ever worked with. You have to hire him, like, I'm seriously on my deathbed, or I would get on a call right now and provide a reference, but I have nothing but amazing things to say. So, like, yeah,
right,
when you
yes,
are, uh, a fan of someone, like, you will respond to that reference email or
Yeah.
do that video in a way that you wouldn't for anyone else.
Yeah. It's so true.
yeah, I love it. I'm thinking more and more. I think yeah, once you guys really solve both sides of the marketplace, this could be extremely helpful to figure out kind of like who's actually good at all this stuff. The video stuff, I really like that. I never really kind of thought about that in that way.
It's pretty crazy just what you learn from the
Yeah,
videos and
yeah,
like, yeah. Just what comes it's been really cool to see. It's been like nobody's job fits in bullet.
right.
Like we spend the majority of our adult life working and then try to boil it down to a couple bullet
Yeah,
points. Like when you let people have the breathing space to talk about what they actually do and how they collaborate and what problems they've solved and how they think about, making things happen, you just learn so much so quickly.
right, right. Do we want to move that's awesome, Joe. And well, said it. It sounds like there's a fundraise in your
Fundraise in the
future.
future.
Yes.
Yeah, if you're, a founder out there thinking about hiring, I'd love to help you. We've got like a beta program
Yeah,
that's
how do people
testing some
find
stuff.
you?
Yeah, just, Joe at allup.world or Joe Fernandez on Twitter. I mean, X, whatever. Uh, I'd love, I think one quick thing, like as a founder that's built, multiple companies, probably
Yeah.
hired over 1,000 people, screwed it up so many times,
Right.
so hard, those early hires where like you're trying to guess like what there's 50 problems, which one do I actually need to solve? What what is it gonna look like in 6 months from now? Like how does a person fit into that? Like making sense of this like moving target and all of a sudden you're like, oh crap, should I not hire it? Because I'm afraid of my runway and like
Right.
all those different things. Like I really love working with early stage companies that are going through that because it resonates so deeply with what I have felt like kind of consistently through the years and all these hires. So like, I feel like we are particularly good at collaborating with companies in like that really early stage kind of first key team members. And we've hired everything from like office manager to like
Right.
computer vision engineer. So like we can do all sorts of roles, but
Allup.world. He got the
all
dot world, guys.
that. So hit me up if you need to hire somebody. I'd love to help.
Asterisk US only right now.
Canada, North America.
Okay, right.
Nice,
Right.
nice.
We also we can't not talk about founder mode. That's another topic.
Founder mode.
I saw a tweet that Sarah had that we kind of went viral. You want to talk about
I
that?
did like a
I think
whole
that's
press tour around this tweet. I think I was
oh, I didn't see
quoted
any of the press.
in
Okay.
every publication. I did like podcasts. I mean, it was crazy. So for those who are living under a rock, Founder Mode is a post from Paul Graham of Y Combinator fame, where he talks about a talk that Brian Chesky of Airbnb fame did, basically saying there's two modes. There's Founder Mode, there's Manager Mode. And Manager Mode is kind of the conventional wisdom that you should kind of delegate and be hands off. But it turns out it's Founder Mode that really works. And then he never goes on to really define Founder Mode.
Right.
My tweet was like, remember when all the female founders did Founder Mode and got canceled for it? That went viral.
Yeah, I remember
So
that. That
true.
was which company? So Nasty Gal, who we had on here, was her company one of the first, I guess, to go through that?
Yeah, she was
And
like kind of the original getting canceled for being a female founder,
yeah, and then
Away got
Away
hit.
Luggage.
Yeah.
Sophia
Yeah,
Amoruso.
yeah, it's yeah, kind of, and also the other take I saw on founder mode is like, well, people have been doing this forever, and also I was like, you don't need to be founder and all this, and I do like the concept though, and it definitely doesn't need to be a founder, and also you should like not if especially if you're a woman or that it was just terrible how all those companies got taken down because people were just like managing the company the way they needed to manage it, and I think that the idea of you being a founder, and that could be a founder of the company or a product or whatever. But like you going in and reaching into the details. I saw somebody I follow on Twitter. He was talking about he launched Amazon Music, and he would talk about how Jeff Bezos would get into the weeds and he didn't talk to him, and Apple Music was not one of their main products, but it obviously is still pretty massive. Or sorry, Amazon Music, but Jeff would literally just want to go into all the details of the design and all of this stuff, not even just to have an input, but just to show everybody else and make an example of like what you should be doing as an actual leader within the organization. It's like you need to show everybody else that like you this is how deep you need to really go because it's so easy, and we've all worked with the managers that kind of just gloss over or like just focus on managing up and are not actually focused on like what's best for the company and all that versus going really into the details and pushing a product over the line or making sure they're moving the right metrics and all of that. And so there's a lot of different ways you could view founder mode. I thought, but I did think it was a clever thing that Paul Graham did brand it, just like he's branded so many other things. And I thought that was a clever thing about that.
So are you like, would you say you operate in Founder Mode? Both of you? Are you Founder Mode operators?
Yeah, I hope so. Yes. Are you, Sarah? Are,
Yeah, I mean, I think to an extent, but I think the point of my tweet is like, women have gotten in trouble for being like Steve Jobs and Elon Musk and and Jeff Bezos. Like, you know, a lot of times that is what gets them canceled is like this kind of tough, uh, kind of perfectionism that um, ends up being the thing that gets them taken down by anonymous employees who have grievances. So I think, women especially have to be careful. Like you have to walk a fine line between, doing what works, which is sometimes going down in the details and being really tough and ruthless and, firing people that aren't up to
yeah, you
speed,
should be able to do that. Absolutely.
but also make sure that every Slack message you write could be one day displayed in a takedown piece about you. Yeah.
So what do you think? So what can you do, especially as a woman? Like what would you advise people actually be more careful with their words or what they write in Slack, or just be like, I don't give a shit. I'm doing this, and I'm going to manage the company that I think is going to be the best, and we're going to be successful at it, and just take all the hits along the way.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like I think the media now being behind a paywall is like one of the best things to happen to female
Yeah,
founders because I have seen some takedown pieces come out more recently, and these women did not get fired. Like their board did not fire them; they just wrote it out. Um, and I think it's because these pieces don't get the distribution anymore. Like someone responded to my tweet,
right.
like, well, if it's published in the information, it doesn't matter because no one will ever see it besides some VCs who pay for a subscription.
Right.
Like,
Right.
yeah, that's pretty much like Business Insider was known for these takedowns. Everything is paywall, the information. TechCrunch doesn't really do takedown pieces for the most part anymore. They just do, except for that one founder who did get taken down and then they apologized. the uh the guy that wrote the piece about
Meritocracy.
it's not DEI, it's forget what his new uh coined
Something
phrase was.
meritocracy related. I
Sorry, what was that?
thought it was like a
Yes.
meritocracy. Yeah.
Meritocracy. What was it? He called it like instead of like
He did have a good
me, I don't know what
yeah.
he branded, but TechCrunch wrote like a mean post about it and then took it back. It was like, no, we apologize.
Well, I think that the whole idea of founder mode, I think in the early days, everybody's doing founder mode. If you all are going to get the company to the next stage, you have to do that. I think this is more particular branding for these large companies that are, and I was told this too, like when we raised a ton of money at Shyp, like from my board and all of that, it's like, well, now you need to like go and hire some professional managers and like really delegate and like to be able to hire those people, like they are going to want a certain amount of control. And it's like, okay, now it's your time to kind of give up the reins. And I actually definitely identify with like how shit goes wrong because typically those type of managers that you do hire, they're not as connected to the company. They have a career that they're trying to manage and they don't have the company's best interests always in mind. So I definitely
And not
can
just
identify with
control,
that.
like they also want to hire a lot of people. They want a big
Yeah,
budget.
exactly.
And so they
Yeah,
end up
yeah,
costing a lot of money in just like their salary because they want to be paid really well. But then they also want a lot of people reporting to them. So they want to go out and hire and build a team. We have also gotten the feedback along the years, especially
right,
after like fundraises, like, okay, now you should be going out and hiring these positions, or like after we became profitable. And it has taken everything in me to push back against that. And I think
right.
that's been to our advantage and the reason we are profitable. But like, yeah, I think that is the traditional advice, like now go hire. And that's not always the solution.
Joe, what's your experience in this?
I mean,
Hiring thousands of people.
it really resonates the uh scaling up. I remember hiring our first head of sales and he had taken some group at Yahoo back at the time. And this is like,
Yeah,
from like 100 million to $1 billion in revenue.
right,
And we hadn't even made $100,000 in revenue. And
right.
like, and he was a great guy and like all the things, but like, it's just the VC pressure to like grow and all those things. And then to delegate and delegating to somebody who's used to operating at a scale that you're not at, and the org that gets injected into that, the cost that comes with it is really painful. I have struggled with a bunch of those things, like how to make those decisions. One thing I'm interested in, because there's like, I agree with a ton of the founder mode and like, I love being in the details and I
Yeah,
love kind of, I think us as founders have a vision that we're trying to bring to the world. And in the early stage, especially like a singular kind of voice on some key decisions is really powerful and important. Uh, that can't maintain forever, obviously. Uh, but it's hard to find the excuse of like, when are you being in founder mode and when are you just being an asshole? Because we all
yeah,
know
yeah, yeah.
founders, and we've probably been this in moments ourselves where you like there are just like assholes and
And this
nobody
is good.
wants to work for that person.
This is gonna give them more rain as well, and they're just
Period. Yeah.
yeah, it's this is not gonna end well now that it's kind of okay to do it. Have you had, Joe, with some of your executives that you've hired over the years that you've kind of seen them kind of go into this manager mode and kind of like manage up and kind of forget
For
about
sure.
details
Oh
and
yeah, for sure. And they want, they just think about the business. Uh, Sometimes like playing not to lose versus playing to win.
totally.
Uh, Org focused, span of control, focused, but not owning results is like as much as you have to a CEO, um, and not getting the core insight as deeply as you might get it, and
Yeah.
kind of little decisions that add up, and you look up all of a sudden you're way off course,
Right.
and you're trying to then backtrack is really painful. I've experienced that. Uh, so yeah, finding being more thoughtful about which battles to pick and where to like lay the line. I'm like, all right, you can mess with this stuff over here and try things, but these core things we're sticking to.
Right.
I feel like I've gotten better at, but like, uh, it took a long time to get confident. Like I had this experience where, there going back to the resume thing, I had nothing on my resume that was impressive, and so as Klout got momentum,
Right.
I would get these people with like incredible pedigree and
Right.
be like, oh my god, that person wants to work here.
Yeah.
That person must obviously know what they're doing. I should listen and try to like give them space and just like, and it's just not true.
No.
Yeah, I mean, I've found, like, sometimes the more impressive the pedigree, like, the less they've actually done because they're just supported by
Yes.
all of these incredible people. Like, it's easy to be pretty mediocre and hide amongst all the talented employees at a major tech company. Um, so yeah, I mean, just finding those like, I'm so glad you're working on allUP because I think that is a core challenge, and I am willing to hire people that will up level me in the company,
For sure.
Right.
not just for the sake of putting a manager in place, but because they really possess a talent and a skill and are working at a higher level and will make the whole company better in a particular area.
Yep.
I think also with the founder mode, I think anybody can do this, right? It's really just like owning everything, going deep into the details. And I definitely like when I was the first time founder at Shyp, like I would kind of like ignore for some tangible examples. I'd kind of ignore like what is the P&L on one of these warehouses? Like what is it like what are our costs? And that ended up being one of the main reasons that we did not make it work. And so I have like forced myself to get into all the details and like learn like how do you create a P&L from scratch? And like I own the model now, and I do all these things that I don't necessarily love, but I know that it's critical to the business, and I'll go super deep in that. So I think that's critical, and but anybody could do that, and you should be doing that whether you're owning a product or you're managing some marketing campaign or doing whatever. Like you should be like the owner of that and be able to go dive deeper into the details. The one thing that I thought was interesting is that as a founder, and maybe this is a question, do you have the ability to impact the organization that like a non-founder kind of has? Like, could you come in to be like, we're now going to be completely switching from this to now this versus just like, say you replace the founder with a professional CEO and they had to earn all the trust. So like you have Dara at Uber versus Travis, and with Travis, because he was the founder, be able to kind of get everybody at Uber behind whatever initiative they were because he's the founder versus Dara, who's a professional manager. Like, is that a thing?
So you're asking, can a hired CEO in that case uh, get more respect than a founder?
Yeah.
I think it's really tough. I think there are decisions that like you need founder kind of passion to get an org to rally around certain really, really tough decisions.
Yeah.
Uh,
I think it's easier
but
for a founder because I mean,
And I
you can
think,
also
uh,
hire people who aren't on board. Like, for the most
uh,
part, it's your vision, and if you wanna like, drive the vision in a different direction, people will follow. You just have to make a compelling case for it.
and I think that's one of the things that kind of got missed in the overall messaging with that. I do believe that is a thing. I think it's like you were the one who created this, or you were in a group of founders, and like you have the ability to change an organization just differently than if somebody that you were to come in and hire. I think
Yeah.
that is a difference. But anybody else in the org can operate in this so-called founder mode versus manager mode is just kind of being the shitty manager.
yeah, I mean, I've definitely had PMs that operate in founder mode and had massive
Totally.
impact.
Yeah. You don't need to
Yeah.
Like,
be the founder to do that stuff.
I mean, you
but
also, like, you have to know when it matters to go. Like, you can't go into the details of everything, but like the
No,
P&L, probably pretty important. Like, I
probably.
found a
It
bug in
was.
Stripe the other day that I like tweeted about, and turns out it's like was a system wide bug. Like, Stripe should
It's
start
amazing.
paying me, but it's because I'm in the details of our revenue, and I like read that stuff super closely line by line, because that I can't screw up. Like, I need to know
Yes.
we are getting paid correctly, all the money's accounted for. And so they were
Yeah.
like, "How did you find this?" And I'm like, "Because I care about for revenue, I account for every dollar and
Right.
cent." But then there's like, if our marketing team wants to make a ad that I don't really love, like, whatever, I don't care. Let's see if it performs. If it's bad,
Yeah.
we'll take it down. Like, that stuff I just don't worry about.
Yeah.
People will sometimes message me like, "Oh, this ad is a little weird. It's about Montessori, but then the photo isn't really matching Montessori." I'm like, "I don't care." Okay,
I didn't do it. I don't
like,
care.
let it
Yeah.
run. Like, if it's bad, it's just not gonna perform. Like,
Right.
let them learn that. Like, I'm fine, give them the feedback, but, like, I don't need to get involved here as the CEO.
Yeah.
Like, don't bring me into this. Whereas, like, the money is wrong, I'm gonna be involved, and I'm gonna be messaging Stripe every day and tweeting about it until it's fixed, because that is our money.
It's your money. Let's end it on that. Well, everybody go join allUP, especially if you're looking to hire or you're looking for work. Great having you back again, Joe.
Thank you
Thanks everybody
guys.
for
So fun.
listening.
Thank
Talk to
you,
you guys
Kevin.
later. Bye.